Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough.
Hello and welcome to Bayou Times News. I'm your host, Tanner McGee. Today we have a very special guest. We have Congressman Garrett Grave on the show today. Very happy to have you on. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Great to be back.
So it's been a minute since I had the moment to see you and talk to you, but things have been kind of happening. There's been some really interesting stuff in Congress. I'm gonna start with the one my kids care about the most, which is TikTok. And I'll tell you, my daughter told me the other day, Dad, they're really not going to ban TikTok, are they? So what's going on with, you have TikTok, you have funding bills and the border. Give us a little update.
Look, this was a huge week. In fact, on Friday and Saturday, we had a number of consequential votes. And look, we can start with TikTok. TikTok, it has been proven that the Chinese Communist Party has access to the data, controls the algorithms, which basically determines what your kids, my kids, are exposed to. And so what the bill does that we voted on that will become law is it doesn't ban TikTok. It simply says that you've got to sever this relationship with the Chinese Communist Party. They shouldn't have access to all of the information on our phone, the contacts we have, the text messages, the internet searches, and things along those lines. Because just like your children are being told that all of these things are happening, the Chinese government is effectively using TikTok as a way to manipulate public opinion in the United States. It's dangerous. It's sort of like psychological operations. And so I'll say it again, the law will not ban TikTok. It just says you have to sever these relationships with the Chinese Communist Party and have American ownership. So that's moving forward on the funding bills. The insecurity around the world, whether it's the Middle East and what's going on with Iran and Israel, what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, what's going on with China and Taiwan. There were a number of other funding bills that step in and provide assistance, ensuring that the Pacific Theater, Taiwan is protected, has the resources that it needs to stand up against China and some of the aggressive actions that China's carrying out there, as well as in the East and South China Sea, where they're trying to basically take international waters, take lands that belong to Philippines, Vietnam, and other countries, and trying to say that they're theirs. So that was funded. There was another bill that funded Israel, our main ally in the Middle East, and protecting them from the aggression of Iran, as well as some of their terrorist proxies, watching the only democracy in the Middle East being attacked by terrorist groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Houthis, and others shooting rockets. I mean, it'd be like if in our neighborhood right now, all of a sudden a rocket came in and exploded. I've been to these communities. It is remarkable watching folks have 11 seconds to go from a playground to a bomb shelter. And of course, the last one is Ukraine. As we watch Vladimir Putin come in and try and steamroll and effectively reassemble the Soviet Union together with the communist policies. So all three of those funding bills, as well as the TikTok bill, did pass. I will tell you, I had some strong reservations with the Ukraine bill and ended up voting against that one for the failure to put appropriate protections in place. And lastly, it's really difficult for me to come home and say, yes, we funded protection of the borders of all these other countries without doing anything to protect our own border here.
Absolutely. And yeah, the Ukraine vote seemed to be kind of a more controversial one than maybe the Israeli vote, for at least here locally. I can't, maybe in other parts of the world, in my United States, it may be a little bit different. It seems to be a lot going on with that, but that wasn't the only thing. We have some interesting developments on the WEP and GPO. Tell the audience what that is and kind of what's transpired.
Yeah, so Tanner, these are 40-plus-year-old problems that has a huge impact on folks like police officers, teachers, firefighters, and other public employees in Louisiana. So it doesn't matter if you worked for the Terrebonne Parish government, if you worked for Lafourche Parish government, if you were a teacher, worked for the school system, police officer, if you work for the state of Louisiana. There is a penalty once folks go to retire. And the problem, Tanner, is that most people don't even realize this exists until they go to retire and they realize that their Social Security benefits were not what they were told they were going to be. And so we know people who believe their Social Security checks were going to be $2,000 a month, and they go to retire only to find out it's only $300, $400 a month. And so we have a bill that eliminates that penalty. It effectively says if you pay into Social Security, you're going to be treated just like anyone else, not effectively penalized for choosing to be a teacher, firefighter, police officer, and other professions. We now have 319 co-sponsors, the second most co-sponsored bill in Congress. Strong bipartisan support. We had a hearing Tuesday a week ago, and we're now moving to push that bill for a vote before the full committee. But lots of progress for a 40-year-old problem no one's been able to solve.
No, absolutely. And look, my parents are public school employees. My dad was a principal. My mom was a teacher and a guidance counselor. So I'm very aware of the issue. In fact, it's something that we would pass resolutions at the state house saying y'all need to fix this problem in Congress. And so I'm glad to see that we have at least a chance that it's going to pass the full body of Congress. Or at least it looks like it's appearing to be that way.
So look, the momentum we have now is stronger than anything we've ever had before. We're really excited about the progress.
What do you think the chances are in the Senate that they also pass that bill?
So right now in the Senate, there has not been as much support for the effort over there. But look, this is one of these things, Tanner, I've said it twice now, I'm going to say it a third time. This has been going on for over 40 years. If this were easy, it would have been done a long time ago. We're going to have to kind of step in and get the momentum going. And I'm hopeful we can get it signed into law this Congress. But if not, we're going to start back in January and build upon all of the progress that we made this year. But look, I really think we've got a good shot of getting this through the House. And that momentum will really put the Senate on the spot and I think force them to act on this bill. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to force action. We're not going to back down on this thing despite the opposition we've run into. And this is really just fixing an injustice that's been around now since the late 1970s, early 1980s.
It reminds me of something that John O'Leary used to tell us, which is bad bills pass quickly, good bills take a couple years.
That is exactly the scenario. But of course, with Congress, you got to add a zero to everything because instead of a couple of years, we're going to be looking at 20 to 40, and Congress makes everything slow. It's amazing.
Absolutely. We'll be right back talking to Congressman Garrett Graves in a couple of seconds. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
Welcome back to Bayou Time News. Again, I'm your host, Tan McGee, and we're here with Congressman Garrett Graves. During the break, we kind of started talking back about Ukraine. I kind of wanted to revisit it with you. You said you were supportive of supporting Ukraine, but maybe not supportive of exactly what's going on with that bill and everything else. I wanted to kind of follow up with it and let people hear more about that. So.
Yeah, Tanner, look, I firmly believe that Vladimir Putin is trying to reestablish the former Soviet Union. I do. I don't think he just has his sights on Ukraine. I think he keeps going, which you have to keep in mind. If he crosses into Poland or one of these other countries that's a NATO ally, we have an agreement in place that would require effectively boots on the ground. We would have American men and women, our soldiers, we would have our aircraft up above. And so I do think it's important that we stop this in Ukraine. We stop Vladimir Putin from even getting into Ukraine or trying to gain ground there. And so I do believe we need to be supportive of Ukraine. But the problem is, I think the Biden administration is shoveling money at the problem without a plan to actually end it. What needs to happen is we need to provide them more advanced weapon systems, more lethal weapon systems to truly just get this over with. Otherwise, I think what's going to happen is this isn't just going to stretch out for years. It'll be stretching out for decades and get to the point to where it is completely unaffordable for Americans to do this. So we need to have a clear plan, a concise plan to end this war. And this administration has failed to provide the transparency and accountability of dollars. And they failed to provide a clear plan or strategy on how this thing is going to end. We cannot continue funding endless wars. So Absolutely. We've got to have the right plan in place.
And talk about one quagmire movement to another one, Army Corps of Engineers. Now let's talk about a little bit of what your work on transportation infrastructure and kind of where we are. We can hit some local projects as well and see what's kind of going on in some of these issues.
So, Tanner, you hear the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and it's kind of one of those weedy inside baseball things in Congress, but that committee is a key committee for Louisiana. It's everything from roads and bridges, which we certainly need, ports and waterways, transit and airports. It has full jurisdiction over the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and all the projects for hurricane protection, coastal restoration, and flood control, dredging our navigation channels, has jurisdiction over FEMA and disasters. We certainly have a lot of issues there, pipelines, economic development, and public buildings. So just a really, really wide breadth of jurisdiction that is very impactful for Louisiana. And we have the chance to be the chair, the next chair of that committee, which would mean we would have the pen, we would control the pen and be able to write all these laws, finally reforming FEMA, finally reforming the Corps of Engineers, being able to booster Terrebonne Airport, being able to finally get the Morganza to the Gulf project finished. And so really excited about that opportunity. And I think that if we play our cards right, we could be the next chair of that committee, and really, really exciting opportunity for us and for South Louisiana. But, the other thing in that same vein, just some of the things that we've been working on in the infrastructure space. We recently secured $5 million, in fact, over $5 million for Houma Terrebonne Airport. They're out there on the cutting edge of new technology.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's something that people, I think, in the district might not know how important that airport is and can be, and it's going to take some federal investment, some state investment, maybe some local investment, but there's a lot of exciting stuff that's going on out there.
There really is. There effectively is a whole city that lives out in the Gulf of Mexico. And with new technology where you have these autonomous vehicles, you have electric vertical takeoff and landing, I mean, all kinds of new technologies. And we could actually be a test bed or a research bed for those things right there at the Houma Terrebonne Airport, which was the largest blimp base in the world during World War II. And we can kind of take it for that next iteration, that next opportunity to innovate new technology, to lead the United States and lead the world. And so we're making investments there. We recently funded the Houma Navigation Canal, working toward deepening that channel that's so important for all of the fabrication and shipyards that are on the channel. We've got to be able to fit wider and larger vessels. We recently funded tens of millions of dollars for the Morganza to the Gulf project, bringing the total amount of money to over $500 million in federal investment on top of the property tax or millage, on top of the sales tax that residents in these parishes pay for that project. Sugarcane's another big one. And we recently pulled in a total of nearly $20 million to develop a new sugarcane research unit right down here in Terrebonne Parish that will be innovating new varieties of sugarcane to withstand some of the invasive species, some of the drought conditions we're experiencing, and other threats to that crop, and really trying to not just protect or develop more resilient varieties, trying to develop varieties that are more abundant in regard to the amount of sugar they produce, and really helping to bolster agriculture production in this area.
No, those are all really important stuff, especially it's all important stuff, but a lot of the navigational projects, I mean, I think we underutilize almost all of our ports in Louisiana, not just the Houma one, but, and then getting more ships dredging. All that stuff takes resources and money to get our commerce open. And I think sometimes the public doesn't have get a good picture of that, right? And I think it's huge for us if you can bring those projects back. I really do.
Look, Louisiana's economy, particularly in our coastal region, it's unique. We have what we refer to as a working coast, and making sure that these ports and waterways are accessible, that they're dredged, making sure that our communities are safe, which means pouring investment in restoring the coast, into hurricane protection and flood control. Delivering these dollars and prioritizing these projects is absolutely critical. And we've been able to make huge progress in recent years, as you know, breaking the logjam on the Morganza project that had not, after nearly 30 years, received a penny in federal construction funds. And we were to break that logjam. And now we're up to, again, in excess of $500 million for that project alone.
No, it's all wonderful stuff. And I mean, as somebody who's served in the legislature and have gotten to watch, all the TikTok bills and all that stuff, that's something for people to watch late night news about and kind of think about. But what's really important is actually making our lives better. And these projects are the ones that really make a difference. And I really do appreciate all the work you've done on that. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have to talk about it. We're going to have you back on, probably talk about more stuff that you're doing in Congress. But thank you for being on, Congressman.
You bet. Thanks, Tanner.
And thank y'all, and we'll catch you next time. This is Tanner McGee for Bayou Time News.